The year was 1927. America stood at a crossroads. The Roaring Twenties were in full swing, but a shadow lurked beneath the surface. This shadow was the case of Buck versus Bell. It was a landmark Supreme Court case. The decision sent shockwaves through the nation. It continues to haunt us today. The case centered around Carrie Buck, a young woman from Virginia. She became a pawn in a dark chapter of American history. This chapter was the eugenics movement. Eugenics was a pseudoscience. It advocated for the forced sterilization of individuals deemed unfit to reproduce. The Supreme Court, in an 8-1 decision, upheld Virginia's sterilization law. This law allowed for the forced sterilization of people like Carrie. They were deemed feeble-minded or unfit to procreate. This decision had devastating consequences. It legitimized eugenics. It led to the forced sterilization of tens of thousands of Americans. The Buck versus Bell case serves as a chilling reminder. It reminds us of the fragility of our freedoms. It shows us what happens when prejudice triumphs over justice. It is a story we must never forget. Carrie Buck was born into poverty in Charlottesville, Virginia. Life was a constant struggle. She was later labeled feeble-minded by the state. This label was based on flimsy evidence. It had devastating consequences for her. Carrie's mother, Emma, was also deemed feeble-minded. She was institutionalized. This left Carrie in the care of foster parents. These foster parents, the Dobbs, exploited her. They forced her to work as a domestic servant. When Carrie was 17, she was raped by the Dobbs' nephew. To conceal the assault, the Dobbs had Carrie committed to the Virginia colony for epileptics and feeble-minded. There, she gave birth to a daughter, Vivian. Carrie's story is one of hardship and injustice. She was a victim of circumstance. She was targeted by a system that sought to control her reproduction. Her story is a stark reminder of the human cost of eugenics. The Virginia Eugenical Sterilization Act of 1924 was rooted in fear and prejudice. It was fueled by a belief in the superiority of the white Anglo-Saxon race. It was designed to prevent the reproduction of those deemed defective. This included people with disabilities, people of color, and the poor. The act allowed for the forced sterilization of individuals deemed feeble-minded, insane, or epileptic. It was based on the flawed science of eugenics. This pseudoscience claimed that traits like poverty and criminality were hereditary. This law had a devastating impact on countless lives. It ripped families apart. It silenced voices. It stripped individuals of their fundamental right to have children. Carrie Buck and her family were just a few of its many victims. The Supreme Court's decision in Buck versus Bell was a dark day for justice. It was a betrayal of the very principles of equality and liberty. The court, in an 8-1 ruling, upheld the constitutionality of Virginia's sterilization law. This decision had far-reaching consequences. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., writing for the majority, delivered a chilling opinion. He argued that forced sterilization was justified in the interest of public health. He famously wrote, "3 generations of imbeciles are enough." This statement reflected the deeply flawed thinking behind eugenics. The lone dissenter was Justice Pierce Butler. He recognized the injustice of the law. However, his voice was drowned out by the majority. The Supreme Court's decision legitimized eugenics. It paved the way for the forced sterilization of thousands of Americans. The legacy of Buck versus Bell is one of pain and injustice. The Supreme Court's decision opened the floodgates for widespread sterilization abuses. Over 60,000 Americans were forcibly sterilized in the decades that followed. Many of them were poor, people of color, or institutionalized individuals. The ruling had a chilling effect on reproductive rights. It cast a long shadow over the lives of marginalized communities. It reinforced existing prejudices. It fueled discrimination against people with disabilities. Even after eugenics fell out of favor, the impact of Buck versus Bell lingered. It wasn't until the 1970s that states began to repeal their sterilization laws. The case remains a stain on American history. It is a reminder of the dangers of unchecked state power. The echoes of Buck versus Bell can still be heard today. The case serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of reproductive rights. It highlights the dangers of government overreach into personal autonomy. It is a story that is as relevant today as it was nearly a century ago. In recent years, we have witnessed renewed attacks on reproductive rights. From restrictive abortion laws to attempts to defund Planned Parenthood, the right to bodily autonomy is under constant threat. Buck versus Bell reminds us that these rights are not guaranteed. They must be vigilantly defended. The case also raises important questions about the role of the state in regulating reproduction. It underscores the need for greater awareness of the history of eugenics. It highlights the importance of safeguarding the rights of all individuals, regardless of their perceived fitness. The story of Carrie Buck and the legacy of Buck versus Bell are painful reminders of the dangers of ignorance, prejudice, and unchecked power. They serve as a call to action, urging us to remain vigilant in our defense of individual rights and to challenge systems of oppression. We must learn from the mistakes of the past to create a more just and equitable future. Remembering Buck versus Bell is not just about acknowledging a dark chapter in American history. It is about recognizing the ongoing struggle for reproductive justice. It is about challenging the systemic inequalities that continue to marginalize and endanger vulnerable communities. It is about ensuring that everyone has the right to make their own choices about their bodies and their lives. We must never forget the lessons of Buck versus Bell. We must continue to fight for a world where every individual is valued, respected, and free to make their own choices about their bodies and their futures. This is the legacy we must strive to create. This is the promise we must make to future generations. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell to stay updated with more stories that delve into the past and explore their impact on our present. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.